What is the demands of a modern day feminist?
I think the sad fact is we all have our own agenda.
Maybe it's lost some of its meaning, but feminism historically has gone through different waves.
Welcome to Bridge the Gap, a show where we aim to build a bridge of understanding between opposing views. Each episode you'll see our participants sit down to discuss some thought-provoking statements. If they disagree with the statement, they'll leave their seat and allow those that agree to explain themselves.
It takes two people to create a child.
Those that disagree then return and express themselves to the rest of the group.
Say the guy is not around when you find out you might be pregnant and he can't really have a say, like he's in another country.
Hopefully building a bridge of understanding. Let's see what happens.
The true meaning of feminism has been lost.
You can sit. If you agree with that statement,
Should I go? Do you want to go?
You can go ahead.
Oh yeah, the main reason I think it's been lost is because feminism originally was about inclusivity, and now with all the arguing about transphobia, started by J.K. Rowling and many other influential people, and dragging cancel culture into it, it feels like we are excluding people from what feminism is. So I think that it has lost what it originally was about.
I agree. I mean, feminism by definition is basically, it's pro-women's rights. It's meant to support women in a society whereby women's rights have been negated from one sense or the other by being in a patriarchal society. So feminism originated mostly from Europe. That's where it started to develop, but then it went over to the States, and it became an even bigger movement, and it's just been kind of like in that circle ever since. But the reason why I think it's been lost, because if I'm talking about the actual meaning of itself and where we are in modern day society, I feel the lines have been somewhat blurred. Now, talking from a male perspective, some people have said feminism also includes the male perspective and also advocating for male equality, which I don't have a problem with. But if we're talking about feminism, we're talking about female equality if we're talking about the real definition of the word. Yeah. And because, we're in different times whereby we're trying to get equality for different things that weren't really on the topic of yesteryears. Like, for example, we're talking about men's rights now. Even though we're in a patriarchal society, there's still men at the bottom of the food chain, especially in working class culture, whereby they are subjected to things that the 10% are not going to be subjected to. If that means opportunities in job, your salary, or where you live, or the fact your neighborhood where you walk down the street and being subjected to violence, or losing your life, or private healthcare. There's so many different battles going on now. If I was to talk about feminism, that's really not where the line meets it for me. I think that we should keep it female, from a female perspective on that, because that's what the word means. If it needs to be male, perhaps we need to come up with a different word to explain that.
I hear that, and to be honest with you, I probably should have gotten up, but what I will say is that I feel like the whole message behind feminism has been completely lost from the beginning, from the outset. Right. Feminism is about the equality of men and women, and if that's what feminism means, then I would be a feminist. However, what you find is that the branch of feminism, especially in the early days that was pushed, was for predominantly white women. Now, black feminism is another branch of feminism that isn't discussed in the media and isn't pushed as much. And to be a black woman in this society is worse than to be a black man. And it's a unique experience as well. You can't just say, we've got feminism and we've got the Black Lives Matter movement. There needs to be a black feminist movement that specifically deals with the unique experience of being a black woman. And I don't think feminism has ever really advocated for that. Obviously, you've got my G. Bell Hooks, who advocates for, black women rights. But I think the main discourse and the main conversations around feminism are being had by white women.
Can I add to that? I think that J.K. Rowling is a great example. J.K. Rowling, she's so famous, she should be talking about black feminism. Instead, she's choosing to argue about transphobia and think that trans people shouldn't be allowed into women's spaces. So she's picking the wrong issue to broadcast, which is the reason why I have an issue with how she defines feminism, but that might be not really meant.
It's interesting because I think even, around this whole Black Lives Matter you know, conversation that's being had. It's interesting to see who the media choose to put on to their platforms. Like, you know, all the big stations like ITV, Good Morning Britain, from like BBC News as well. They've never actually they don't actually often put radical black feminists on TV. Obviously, we've got Dr. I forgot her name now.
Dr. Shola?
Yeah, Dr. Shola. Yeah, we've got Dr. Shola, and obviously she speaks truth to power, but a lot of the times they put on like black celebrities. The average black celebrity isn't that politically educated, and even when they are, they may not have the guts to speak truth to power. So obviously I'm concerned that a lot of the times when they get black faces to talk about black issues, they don't know what they're talking about. Even Dizzy Rascal, when Piers Morgan asked him that question, can you articulate what Black Lives Matter means to you? He said it straight.
He's like, nah,
I'm not the black spokesman.
And
why should he have to articulate what Black Lives Matter means? You know what I'm trying to say? Just because he's black does not necessarily mean he's politically educated or he knows or he's going to be able to articulate it in the correct manner. So I think I rate Dizzy Rascal for saying that, and he even said, go get a colour to come on. You get what I'm trying to say? Because at the end of the day, if you're not well read politically, you can't just come and speak on black issues. You know what I'm trying to say?
Do we just go? Cool. Yeah, man, I disagree with you guys, man. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not hearing it. It's semantics, right? So feminism's purpose and meaning hasn't been lost, it's changed. And all things change. It's a movement, it has to grow, it has to elevate, it has to, you know, it has to be representative and relevant to the scenario we're in. You know, that's in every single cause. The cause has to move with the momentum of time.
My argument is it's never been representative of everyone. It's never taken into account the experiences of minority women, in particular black women. It's never done that. Never.
I mean, but the question is, has the message been lost?
Okay.
I say the message was lost from the beginning, but...
First of all, I want to thank you and show my appreciation for speaking about the fact that feminism isn't very inclusive of ethnic minorities, specifically black women. I feel like it's really refreshing to have a black man at that, speak up in regards to the fact that it's not spoken about, so thank you. In my opinion, I feel like in order to really understand feminism is to accept that it's not a singular narrative. So like most things, it's subjective and it can have two polarized ends, one being expression and one being change. And it can change over time. What feminism might mean to me might not be what it means to you. And I feel like over time, whereas feminism was about creating political change primarily, I'm talking about the 50s, 60s, 70s, or 20th century, so forth. It was more so about, you know, being able to vote, being able to be recognized within society, within the home. Whereas now in the 21st century, a lot of women are speaking about like sexual freedom or like gender roles within the home. So I feel like there's no way you can suggest that the definition has changed. It's just that as culture grows and develops, the desires change and everyone is entitled to want different things. And just to kind of touch on what you spoke about, the Black Lives Matter movement, it's one movement, but there are so many different voices. Some people are fighting against police brutality, some people are fighting against institutional racism, so it's like, you can't say Black Lives Matter has one definition. It means something different for everyone, but we are all asking for change. And change can be the immediate desire for change. On the other end is people supporting. So I know that question hasn't been asked. Everybody is a feminist to me because one person might want change and another person might support them, and we're both kind of working towards one thing.
I hear that.
I feel like you've convinced me.
It's true. It's not black and white, you know? It's nuanced, you know? How we view our rights and how we express ourselves is different to every single person. As you said, you can't define a term for someone. And as you said, the culture changes, the movement changes, it has to grow. So yeah, maybe it's lost some of its meaning, but feminism historically has gone through different waves. As you mentioned, you know, legal rights was the first wave. Then there was, you know, economic rights. Then there was gender roles, and it's progression. And now we're in a wave now where we're looking at, right, okay, we're in the third, fourth wave. Let's review our failures of the previous waves and do them right this time around.
Yeah, but my argument is that when we're talking about the fourth wave, the goal of it is a bit sort of convoluted in the sense that what are the demands of what is the demands of a modern day feminist? And when you even look at some of the demands, they are not taking into account the experiences of black women. I'm trying to say, okay, cool, we enjoy many political freedoms in the UK, women can vote, but what about in other countries where women don't have the right to vote? In Saudi Arabia, it was literally just, what, 2 years ago that women were allowed to drive? You know, why can't feminists in this country be arguing for women's rights globally?
I feel like, essentially, in my opinion, it just reflects the environment you're in.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I'm not saying that if a petition comes to support or help people who can't vote, I won't sign for it, but that's not my reality, so that's not my main fight. I can only fight my own battles, I can't fight everyone's battles, so it's very important for all women to speak up, and equally, like I said, it's about change and support, so even if you don't feel like there's an area where you can actively change.
I was just going to ask you, like, from your experiences working in the like corporate world or wherever you work, have you felt like your you know, white women colleagues support you in terms of like pushing for, you know, black female rights? I'm trying to say, because obviously your struggle is unique and probably more deep-rooted than her struggle. Do you feel like she's been an ally to you in that sense? Do you feel like you have many white allies as a black feminist?
I like to push narratives. I like to ask questions. So if you're asking me specifically, I'm somebody who goes into a place and I want to educate, I want to empower, and I also want to learn. So if I'm having a general conversation about I'm sure a lot of black women or women of colour can relate, my hair. Oh my gosh, is that your real hair? Yesterday I had short hair and today I have dreadlocks. It's not my hair. You're not trying to be, you're not trying to insult me by any means, but you're just trying to understand where I come from. And I feel like it's very easy to be offended and become defensive rather than engage in a conversation that allows two people to understand each other and then form a relationship that allows you to become supportive of each other within the workplace. The next time another person has a conversation about my hair, I might not even have to speak up. My fellow white colleague might be able to say, no, actually, they use this for their hair, or this is weave, this is extension. So I feel like we're just kind of like, it's like a tree, we're all kind of like growing off each other.
I hear that, but I just find it so hypocritical or so sort of problematic that, for example, a white woman can come up to you as a black woman and be like, them man don't understand our struggle. Like, what? I'm trying to say, like...
You find it...
So I find it so mad how a white woman can come up to you and be like, like, sis, these men don't understand our struggle, as if they're equating their struggle as a white woman to your struggle as a black woman, when we know the experiences are completely different.
And I think it's okay for them to be different. I hate that we compare. My pain doesn't have to be greater than yours, neither yours to mine. No, I would never take that away from somebody else. Like, that's just that.
Can I ask you a question? Yeah. What's your solution to that? Because I do agree with what you're saying, like, it's not the same thing, but how do we solve that? Have a different type of feminism?
No, I think people just need to acknowledge their privilege, right? In the sense that just like a white man shouldn't go up to a black brother and be like, oh, that man don't understand our struggle as a man. It's, you know, it's somewhat kind of problematic that a white woman will come up to you as a black woman and be like, they don't understand our struggle. Like, the white woman needs to use her privilege, because the structure has always been white man, then white woman, then black man, then a black woman. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So the white woman has always been second to the white man. So they need to understand their privilege and use their privilege to support and help their black sisters.
Otherwise, it's not feminism.
Well, yeah, otherwise,
which is why the issue you said it started.
Yeah, exactly. So my problem is that, cool, the question was, has the message of feminism been lost? My issue is that it was never a good movement to begin with. It never had a clear message. It never had a clear message that included black women. I'm trying to say, if these white feminists were really serious about ending the struggle for minorities, they would be with us. You know what I'm trying to say? But a lot of the times they're not. They're not speaking truth to power, and they're not talking about the daily experiences that black women face in this country.
I agree with the latter part of your argument, I do.
I think, though, to a degree, we have to be careful not to conflate, like, racial inequality with gender inequality. And of course they overlap, so I'm here for it, and you got a great point, like, I'm with you on that one. But I think everyone's struggle is unique to their own, and we don't want to take away from someone's struggle because of their race. You know, we don't want to conflate gender and race completely. You know, there's a nuance there for a reason. They overlap. We're not going to deny that.
I spoke about a way,
you know?
So it's like you start off fighting for rights to vote. Okay, now the door's been open, and there's so many branches growing off of that. I feel like, in my opinion, women's voices are still not heard. So we just need a voice to be heard before we can start having different conversations about the fact that, okay, we've got the white voice now, what about the black voice, what about the Asian voice? So it's kind of like, it's steps, and it is frustrating because it's kind of like, for me personally, I always feel like black people always on, at the bottom, like we're always the last people to be heard, the last people to ask for things, but it's like we have to understand it's a process. So that's how I see it.
No, I hear what you're saying, and obviously I agree with you in the sense that everyone's experience is unique, and we shouldn't take away anything from someone. You know, this isn't the oppression Olympics. That's a phrase I like to say, right? Oftentimes we compare our struggles as minority groups that are oppressed, and it's not the oppression Olympics who was the most oppressed. However, cannot deny the fact that white women experience a huge level of privilege, especially in the 21st century, compared to their black counterparts. That's just a fact, right? That you can't, like, the gap is so wide. In fact, if you're a Muslim woman in this country, the struggle is real. Like, it's so difficult to get to get a job, to you know, even have people respect you and listen to you when you're wearing a hijab. Our Prime Minister was quoted multiple times saying, you know, Buki thinks that, what did he call Muslim women?
The letterbox comment,
he called
disgusting.
The letterbox comment that we all know about. So I think, you know, for you to stand there as a white woman and say, oh, my struggle is so peak, when you've got people literally like on the bottom end of society, it's just problematic for me.
Just to interject on that conversation, I think it's also very important to acknowledge the fact that the males in all of this, in all categories of ethnicity, have the advantage over the women in that same category. And at the same time, we also need to find ways to ensure that we're holding, well, males need to hold themselves to account. We need to also ensure that women are empowered to hold men to account, because obviously living in a patriarchal society, there's always been this shroud put over women in terms of like hushing their voices, censoring them, so they can't say certain things because that's just not how things are. So I think in that same right, I think it's very important that we shine a light on men and be like, we need you to be our allies on this, and we don't mean for you to be performative. We need you to be literal, we need you to be physically present in those discussions, especially in the corporate environment where, you know, we don't just have Karens, we don't just have Uncle Toms, we have all sorts of people at the top, especially in the male executive offices whereby it's just ruled by men in general. And sometimes they will put a female there just for tokenism. Do you know what I mean? Because my opinion on that is that if you put someone in a position that's been oppressed there without a plan, it's just tokenism, because it doesn't go anywhere, and there aren't plans to improve those positions so that more females or whoever the marginalized individuals are populating those rooms adequately and efficiently. So I think definitely the conversation needs to be had. The man at the end of the day is the one that holds the power. It doesn't matter which tier we are in the ladder, and I think we need to replicate that formula across the ethnicities within the feminist movement, and in doing so, that's how we're going to achieve equality. Yeah,
I like what you said, Ty, actually, because, yeah, like, even think about it like this. If I was to come to you and be like, our struggles are the same, me being a black man and saying our struggles, you as a black, you'd be like, that's ridiculous. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So the same way I'm saying that's ridiculous is the same way a white woman will come up to you and be like, our struggles are the same, because they're completely not. You know what I'm trying to say? So that's my whole take on it.
It's difficult. It depends on what you speak of. If we're speaking about being sexualized, if we're talking about being objectified, I can't tell a white woman that I don't understand her pain, because as a woman, outside of the color of our skin, we might be objectified and sexualized the same way. But in terms of, no, I'm not saying it's to the same degree, but if we're talking about pay, if we're talking about getting jobs and so forth, it's not the same. You don't know anything about my experiences, you don't know anything about my culture, you don't understand that, you know, because I'm black, I might not be able to get the same jobs as you or be able to get the same pay as you. So it just depends on the context for me.
I agree. And I think it's interesting. Yeah, no, I think I was going to say it's interesting because on the TL the other day, I'm not sure if you guys have been keeping up to date, literally so many tweets were refilled about how black men and white men, it was essentially open season for people to attack black women, especially black women with darker skin, right? That has never happened, never, for white women. You know what I'm trying to say? So you cannot equate the struggles, fam. Like, you just cannot.